3, 2, 1. Perfect. Hi. So recently I've been watching a lot of things by Matt Johnson, and I have thoughts, and I want to talk about them. Matt Johnson is a Canadian independent filmmaker who's probably best known for being one half of the cult web series and Viceland show, Nirvana, the band, the show.
You're a guy, or you're a girl, or maybe you're something different.
No, they don't like different. Not different.
The great thing about Nirvana, the band, the show is that it kind of exists in this weird moment where the internet was just about to become the dominant force in culture, overtaking network television, but it still carries itself with this kind of pre-internet attitude that you don't really get a lot these days. In the modern age, there isn't really a distinction between high and low culture. There's no dominant narrative influenced by movies or music that everyone engages with. You can go up to any random person on the street and ask if they've ever heard of any piece of media that you like, and there's a pretty good chance that they will never have heard of them. Due to the decentralization of media that the internet has caused, it has made it so that everyone can kind of live in their own cultural bubbles, and it's very difficult to find common ground with any given person. Nirvana, the band, the show is from a time where that was not so, and this is reflected in the jokes they make, the references that they make within the show. Back in the day, if you were a part of like nerd culture, there were a certain set of movies you liked, a certain set of music you liked, a certain set of video games you liked. But these days, all of these things are sort of scattered across culture, you know? If someone's really into Indiana Jones, there's not a 100% chance they're also going to be into the Smiths, if that makes sense. Now that these pieces of media and culture no longer come in a package deal, it's very easy to find something that you like and have your own relationship with within the show. In the Nirvana, the band, the show web series, you can find both jokes about the Wii Shop channel and also an extended sequence at the end of an episode, definitely very legally, using the song Tonight Tonight by the Smashing Pumpkins as its soundtrack. It can be surprising to watch today and see such a strange hodgepodge of influences, but back in the day this was kind of just what geeks and dorks liked. They liked video games and they also liked emo music. This phenomenon also appears in much of Matt Johnson's other work. I cannot tell you how exhilarating it was to be watching his film Blackberry about the history of the phone, the Blackberry, and there be within the first third of the film a Good Morning Captain by Slint needle drop. No film has made me feel like that before. That's astounding.
It's gotta be
a genderless burger experience.
Nirvana, the band, the show itself follows these two kind of oafish characters, Matt and Jay, in a band called Nirvana, the band, named so because they thought it would make them sound like a real band, and their disastrous attempts to book a show at their local club called the Rivoli. The humor of the show comes from the fact that all of these plans are comically idiotic. In an episode called The Boy, Matt and Jay attempt to befriend who they believe to be a Make-A-Wish kid and convince him to make it his wish that they play a show at the Rivoli. When they find out that this child is in fact not dying and just ill, they proceed to abandon him and never speak to him again. Maybe my favorite thing about the show in-universe is that it very rarely, in fact, shows us the music that the band makes, but the glimpses that it does show us reveal to us that Nirvana, the band, may in fact be the worst band in the world. Jay is an incredible pianist, but you get the sense his talents are kind of wasted on Nirvana, the band, because Matt is the frontman, and he does these strange spoken word passages over the keys that encroach on the territory of performance art.
Sung by a monster. This is sung by the monster that Nicky. This is sung by Nicky. This is Nicky. This is Nicky.
Like it's almost good. It's almost actually good how bad it is.
Nicky 9 goes up and down the Scarborough Bluffs. They call me Nicky 9 doors. I'm the guy who does that stuff.
Matt and Jay are perfect foils for each other because their strengths and flaws exacerbate one another's. Jay is far more level-headed than Matt, but he's also more cynical and selfish, which leads him to hurt Matt all the time. Matt, on the other hand, is sweet and more innocent than Jay, but he lives in this kind of fantasy world where all of these ridiculous schemes make logical sense. And this is not helped by his undying need for control over situations and people, especially Jay, which leads him to inventing problems that do not exist, coming up with solutions that would not work even if they did, and forcing his best friend to carry out these things to the detriment of his career and well-being. Now, I know it sounds like I'm being a lot more critical of Matt than Jay, but the best bit of the show is the moment where the viewer kind of realizes that Jay is the worst one out of the two of them, if that makes sense. You see the ugly side of Jay in the way he treats Matt. He does truly love him, but perhaps as a reaction to Matt's instinctual need to control him, he has an equally insatiable desire for not only independence, but also to outshine Matt or prove he is in some way better than him. The plot of the last couple episodes of the Viceland series is centered around Jay trying to get a job as a jingle writer, but he feels the need to hide this from Matt because of that need to have something over him. The thing that keeps them together all these years is equally love for each other, but also the individual desire for fame and recognition that would come with playing a real show at a real venue. They both want their art to be legitimized, but Jay might want it more than he wants Matt as a friend. That isn't even a question for Matt. If a show at the Rivoli would come at the cost of Jay as his friend, he would not do it. I know so far I've only been talking about Matt's work in television, but he is primarily a filmmaker, and an eclectic one at that. Other movies in his filmography include the aforementioned Blackberry, The Dirties, Matt and Mara. All of these are incredible films in their own right, but I love the parts of them that are in dialogue with each other, if that makes sense. The most common theme in all of Matt Johnson's work is dreams, or fantasy if you like. All of his films are in some way about a dreamer character, almost always played by him and named after him, who has a conception of reality which is in some way or another incompatible with actual reality. In Blackberry, the three principal characters sort of represent each of the perspectives you can have on running a business or in general, the act of creation. Doug, the naive ideologue, Jim, the cynical businessman, and Mike, the guy stuck between them. The trick the film plays is it starts by portraying Doug as, while well-meaning, ultimately kind of ill-equipped for adult life. Jim, on the other hand, is cold-hearted and cruel and makes bad products because he doesn't care, but he's fucking good at business. He knows what he's doing and he doesn't live in fantasy. He represents the unstoppable, crushing force of reality. However, by the end of the movie, Jim is revealed to be kinda as much of, if not more of, an airheaded idiot living in unreality. A huge issue at the end of the film is that Jim has been promising employees money that does not exist, and this con is the thing that ends up killing the company. Doug, on the other hand, finishes the film escaping the sinking ship that is the Blackberry, selling all his stocks, and secretly becoming one of the richest men in Canada. So in a way, his naive hatred of corporate politics pays off. He gets out unscathed. I think Blackberry is the most balanced depiction of this sort of dreamer character that reappears in Matt Johnson's work. He's neither punished excessively or rewarded excessively. He merely exists in the world and has to contend with it not being how he wants it to be. The Dirties, on the other hand, is a very different story. The issue I see with a lot of people discussing this film is that while, yes, objectively, The Dirties is a movie about a school shooting, it also sort of isn't about that at all, but it also is, but it also isn't, you know? The film follows two best friends, Matt and Owen, social outcasts who get horrendously bullied in school, and who decide to take their emotions out on their bullies in the form of a home movie in which they kill them with guns. The in-universe film that they're making, The Dirties, is completely fictional, but at some point Matt starts joking about the idea of making a sequel where they actually bring real guns to real school and really kill their bullies for real. And Owen laughs at this idea because of course he thinks Matt is joking. Matt is not joking. Matt Johnson in The Dirties is this dreamer archetype taken to its most dark and miserable extent. In the film, both Owen and Matt, but Matt especially, are fucking obsessed with movies and movie quotes and movie references. He makes the end credits of the actual movie look like end credits from an assortment of films he loves. He's always speaking in the language of American filmmaking. Matt is so obsessed with movies because he can't really understand the difference between film and reality. Film is his only way of engaging with reality. As a child being socially rejected from his peers for being weird, being into nerd stuff, displaying queer traits, he retreats into the world of movies because he's not allowed into actual tangible reality. Movies are all he has. Owen, on the other hand, is a foil to Matt because he's not film-obsessed as a necessity due to social ostracization. He's this way because it's easy. He's scared of making a fool of himself, of putting himself out there, but throughout the film, because of his romantic interest and his love of music, he gains passage back into reality, a luxury that Matt, on the other hand, is not afforded. The nature of Matt and Owen's relationship is up to interpretation, but Matt Johnson himself has said that his movies all follow these characters who have unspoken sexual designs on their best friends. So I'm going to read that as a layer in the film. Matt loves Owen, platonically, sexually, romantically, all at the same time. He wants Owen to understand him, but he can't communicate that in a way other than making movies. Through his art, he is desperately hoping Owen will see him and understand him for who he is. But Owen still lives in reality. He lives in a world of consequence, and Matt does not. This is what drives them apart. There's a moment near the end of the movie where Matt is jokingly reading out the definition of a sociopath and saying that he fits the description. And while at first I was watching the movie, I thought this moment was a bit on the nose, now I think it's sort of a meta joke about what a shallow reading of Matt as a character looks like. The film is very insistent on the idea that Matt is not like this because of brain chemicals. He's like this because of the circumstances of his environment. Matt is a filmmaker because his desire for acceptance and understanding will never be quenched. He is an unperson, unacceptable by society, by his peers, by his superiors, and then eventually, when the one man that in any way understands him leaves him, at the end of the film, he's left with only the cameraman. The cameraman is a really interesting part of the film. You get the unnerving feeling that this cameraman character is in some way intangible, maybe a figment of Matt's imagination, something only he can see, or something that he can't see anything else without. But when he speaks to the cameraman in a more substantial way, he's speaking to us. He's making us complicit in the film. Matt makes his movie. He brings a gun to school. He's wearing a shirt that says, "We're only here for the bad guys," as if that mitigates any harm. And he shoots his bullies. He doesn't plan for Owen to see him, but he does. He runs away from Matt, ducking into a random classroom, and Matt follows behind. Matt makes movies so people will understand him. All Owen can do in this moment is look upon Matt with complete bafflement, as if he doesn't even know him anymore. Matt makes movies so people will understand him. Matt makes movies that no one but him can understand. The Dirties is a movie about the dangers of dreaming. What happens when you live so buried in your own world that you cannot conceive of a reality beyond it, where using fantasy as replacement for reality gets you. It's an arrestingly miserable film because it very competently argues against the idea of hope or dreams being in any way good or helpful. To be a filmmaker in the world of the Dirties is to be in the business of turning people into objects and tragedy into entertainment. To be a dreamer in the world of the Dirties is to be so removed from consequence that you can trick yourself into committing the most horrible acts of violence inconceivable to the human brain. It's kind of portrayed as cowardly. Matt makes movies so people will understand him. Matt makes movies that are impossible to understand. Matt doesn't even know how to make a movie that is understandable. Matt doesn't even understand his own movies. He's too psychologically damaged to see the films for what they really are. A cry for help.
What are you doing? It's me!
After the end of the Viceland series and an unreleased third season being canned, Nirvana the band The Show stayed dormant for a while, until earlier this year. Nirvana the band The Show, the movie, was released and screened at a few select cinemas across North America and one in the UK. The film follows Matt and Jay, now older, still trying to concoct a bizarre plan to play the Rivoli, but it quickly devolves into a Back to the Future pastiche where they travel back in time to 2008 and try to change the future in their own favours at the expense of one another. It's their dynamic from the show took to a complete illogical extreme, and it might be one of my favourite movies from this year already. Director Edgar Wright called the movie an insanely charming goof of a film, and I 100% agree. In the latter half of Nirvana the band, The Show, the movie, Jay gets famous, and he gets famous without Matt. Quite literally, he gets everything he ever thought he wanted, but then he completely ruins the perfect life he has in this timeline by shooting someone in the head with a gun. He does this because he's reminded of a game him and Matt used to play. Somewhere deep underneath the greed and ego, Jay still wants his friend back. At the end of the movie, Matt sacrifices his own life to save Jay from having to go to jail, so he can keep his perfect, famous, Mattless life. But Jay doesn't take it. He throws away all the money and power and success in the world just to have a chance to live with Matt again. Matt lets Jay go from his life. Jay lets Matt into his life. And they're back at square one. 40 years old and still coming up with insane, childish plans to trick the Rivoli into letting them play a show. And the astounding thing about Nirvana the band, The Show, the movie, is that it makes this fact something that the audience is rooting for. If The Dirties and the rest of Matt Johnson's films as a whole are about the dangers of dreaming, of refusing to accept a harsh reality, then Nirvana the band, The Show, the movie is the complete opposite. Matt and Jay give up everything they have just to keep on having a life together. A life where they are constantly trying to achieve something that is impossible. But they do this because they get to do it together. They get to keep on dreaming together. And this theme is kind of baked into every part of the film. The fact that the way the film is made is without actors and just Matt and Jay walking up to random people around Toronto, but almost all of these people are willing to engage in the bizarre dream film reality that they're constructing around them is a testament to the film's message. Maybe reality is harsh and cold and unforgiving, but humans as a collective do still have control. We can share hopes, we can share dreams, we can imagine a better world, and through that try to change the one we have. There's an interview with Matt Johnson for Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. I'm gonna try to find it. I looked it up earlier, but I wasn't able to see it. I think I saw it on Twitter at first, but it's Matt talking to an audience, and he starts tearing up as he says the phrase, "Me and Jay watch the show and we think to ourselves, oh boy, I wonder what they're gonna do next." You know? There's something so touching to me about that. The fact that these men get to grow old together, but also that they never stop dreaming and that it's portrayed as a good thing. I truly hope they never stop. I hope they're still trying to get a show at the Rivoli when they're 90 years old. That's the essence of the human experience, right? Trying to do something that is fundamentally impossible, but trying anyway. Why try to get a show at the Rivoli when they'll never give you one? Why do anything when you'll die someday? Because you can't not. That to me is what resonates most in this film. Nirvana, the band, the show, the world, the franchise, is a franchise about the worst band in the world who makes the worst music in the world trying to play a kind of shit venue. And it also happens to be one of the most poignant expressions of the meaning of life I think I've ever seen in my existence. I love it. I think it's really good. I'd recommend you watch it if you have a moment. Anyway, signing off. Like and subscribe to Five Guys Linda. Geese video coming soon.